What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Thursday, May 13th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 9-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. Now, this is a FanDuel play only, and I'm going to give you a bunch of picks from this game, so I don't expect you to play all of them, or I don't recommend that you play all of them, but I do love this game here tonight. So I like Ja Morant from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Ja Morant has averaged 35.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 43, 35, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 34, and 37 minutes. He's projected at 36.8 fantasy points here tonight, and on FanDuel, that's 5 times value. He's $7,400 FanDuel salary, and he's $800 more on DraftKings. So I like Ja Morant on FanDuel here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, now I'm going to give you a value play. I like Jalen Harris from the Toronto Raptors playing the Chicago Bulls, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing point guards. Jalen Harris, he scored 21 and 31 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 25 and 29 minutes. I think he can score at least 20 fantasy points here tonight and get you 5 times value or more. He's $4,000 FanDuel salary, and he's $200 less on DraftKings. So I like Jalen Harris here versus the Chicago Bulls. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Terrence Davis from the Sacramento Kings playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Terrence Davis, he scored 42, 37, and 35 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 29, and 32 minutes. He's projected at 36 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.7 times value. He's $6,300 FanDuel salary, and he's $400 less on DraftKings. So I like Terrence Davis here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, another shooting guard that I like. I've liked this guy quite a bit for the past week or so. I like Dillon Brooks from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Dillon Brooks, he scored 40, 36, and 25 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 30, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 27.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $5,600 FanDuel salary, and he's $500 more on DraftKings. And he scored 32 and 37 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Kings. It's a great matchup, so I like Dillon Brooks here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, another shooting guard that I like is Terry Rozier from the Charlotte Hornets playing the LA Clippers, who have a good defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing shooting guards. Terry Rozier has averaged 35 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 25% usage rate. He scored 39, 55, and 42 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 40, 41, and 39 minutes. So he's playing monster minutes, and he's projected at 36.5 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 39 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's 7,600 FanDuel salary, and he's 100 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 223.5 points scored in this game, so I like Terry Rozier here versus the LA Clippers. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Now guys, just as a quick note, we just released a free DFS contest on Draft Dashboard for MLB and NBA for DraftKings and FanDuel. There's over $500 available in the prize pool, and this is a totally free contest you can enter as a Draft Dashboard member. So make sure to click the link in the description of this video, give Draft Dashboard a try, and you can start playing in our free DFS contest and compete to win some money. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Maurice Harkless from the Sacramento Kings playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have the 13th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing small forwards. Maurice Harkless, he scored 34, 32, and 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 33, 25, and 38 minutes. He's projected at 31 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6.2 times value. He's 5,000 FanDuel salary, and he's 400 less on DraftKings. This might be one of my favorite plays on the slate based on his last 3 games. He's playing a ton of minutes, and he's been productive. I think he can score 30 fantasy points or more here and crush value on both sites. So I like Maurice Harkless here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, now a stud pick for you. I like Kawhi Leonard from the LA Clippers playing the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 8th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Kawhi Leonard, he's averaged 44.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. He scored 41, 40, and 32 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 36, and 29 minutes. He's projected at 43.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's 8,200 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 more on DraftKings. He scored 39, 60, 41, 47, and 36 fantasy points in the last 5 games versus the Hornets. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 223.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup, so I like Kawhi Leonard here versus the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, another small forward that I like is Kyle Anderson from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Kyle Anderson has averaged 29.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He scored 28, 37, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 24, 28, and 31 minutes. He's projected at 29.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 5,900 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 less on DraftKings. And he scored 44 fantasy points in his last game versus the Kings. So I like Kyle Anderson here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? So here's another high risk, high reward play. He worked out quite well last game, and actually the past couple of games, he's playing a bunch of minutes and he's been productive. So I like Aaron Gordon from the Denver Nuggets playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Aaron Gordon has averaged 26.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He scored 35 and 21 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 28 and 30 minutes. Now he's projected at 25.9 fantasy points here tonight, and on FanDuel, that's 6.6 times value. He's only $3,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,200 more on DraftKings. So that'll be about 5 times value on DraftKings, but I think he just makes a great FanDuel play considering he's playing almost 30 minutes a game. He's got 30 plus fantasy point upside, and it's a fantastic matchup. Vegas thinks there's going to be 235.5 points scored in this game. And take a look at this. Aaron Gordon has scored 45, 38, 52, 35, and 27 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Timberwolves. So it just makes a ton of sense to play as a value play on FanDuel. And I think he makes an okay DraftKings play as well. So I like Aaron Gordon here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on.
Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, another power forward that I like is Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Jaren Jackson Jr. has averaged 28.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 23 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 34 and 38 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 27 and 25 minutes. He's projected at 31 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $6,000 FanDuel salary, and he's $100 less on DraftKings. So you guys can see that I just love this game, this Grizzlies versus the Kings. So I'm definitely going to stack this game. So I like Jaren Jackson Jr. here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like DeAndre Ayton from the Phoenix Suns playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing centers. DeAndre Ayton has averaged 33.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He scored 23, 21, and 52 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 31, 32, and 29 minutes. Now, his usage rate is down quite a bit the past couple of games, so that's a little bit concerning, but he is playing his season average in minutes, so no change there. So he does have that 40-50 point upside, or fantasy point upside, and he's projected at 33.5 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.4 times value. He's $6,200 FanDuel salary, and he's $600 more on DraftKings. So I like DeAndre Ayton here versus the Portland Trailblazers. Okay, another center that I like, here's a stud pick for you. I like Nikolai Vucevic from the Chicago Bulls playing the Toronto Raptors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing centers. Nikolai Vucevic, he's averaged 46.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He scored 34, 54, and 55 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 36, and 32 minutes. He's projected at 46.9 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's $9,700 FanDuel salary, and he's $500 more on DraftKings. He scored 37,
47 and 44 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Raptors. So I like Nikolai Vucevic here versus the Toronto Raptors. And actually, just real quick, a stud pick that I might like a little bit more than Nikolai Vucevic is Karl Anthony Towns from the Minnesota Timberwolves playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing centers, Karl Anthony Towns has averaged 47.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. He scored 52, 52, and 36 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 33, 28, and 30 minutes. So I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more here and get you 5 times value or more. He's $10,000 FanDuel salary, and he's the same price on DraftKings. I like this pick because Vegas thinks there's going to be 235.5 points scored in this game, and he did score 51 fantasy points in his last game versus the Nuggets. So I like Karl Anthony Towns here versus the Denver Nuggets.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.